with the word still, I think, and just not something that seems to resonate a lot. At the same time, it's definitely making a comeback. I mean, I think that it's not a coincidence that as Sarah Palin has identified herself as a feminist, and in the mainstream, a lot of conservative women have been calling themselves feminists, that has popularized the term to an extent. And, you know, whether or not we're calling it feminism, I do think that there's a strong desire within the young feminist movement to define what feminism is, so that it's not co-opted by forces that, you know, don't define it the way that we do. And, you know, I would say that one of the defining characteristics of feminist motherhood or feminist parenthood is perspective and diversity. And I think that that's one of the things that third wave feminism brought to the movement, and now it's continuing to evolve. And it's one of the things that I've always appreciated about you, that you've always you know, embraced diverse perspectives of what motherhood is. And so
that you are a young feminist perspective, since you are only 31 years old. I have to just let that people know that.
There's so much writing now about parenting and motherhood. Just, I think it was this week, New York Magazine came out with an article that was titled, "All Joy and No Fun, Why Parents Hate Parenting." And Boston Review also had a whole section devoted to motherhood with several writers, almost all of whom are not women of color, I believe. And so one of the things that I think is really important is that, you know, as mainstream media covers motherhood, it's extremely important that we include women of color in those conversations. But just to talk for a minute about the all joy and no fun perspective on parenthood, I think it's interesting that, you know, we invest so much in our children, but have these expectations. You know, the way that the article was written is that they used to be our staff. You know, they were invested with
working
the farm, and now they're our bosses, sort of our emotional tyrants. But you know, really, I mean, there's so many studies that are out there about how parenting may or may not bring joy, you know, and fun and happiness, you know, to your life. But I think that, you know, where feminism comes into this is that we talk about what the institutions are and what the structures are behind it, and the fact that there isn't paid leave to support parents, and, you know, what is the financial position that we're in as parents, and what are the gendered expectations placed on men and women as parents, you know, and so we need to question all of that.
What was fascinating about being in the college situation and seeing the core studies in motherhood, and of course which dove a bit into the herstory of mothers, but much more so talked about what are the assigned roles, how are we going to mix those up. Those classes were filled with boys, young men, and young women, and they were ready to engage in lively discussions. And within the context of when I say so much work to be done, what's interesting is there is a whole movement, underground movement afoot right now in the mothering world, where daddies are mothering and taking those roles that we've associated with women on. I saw that again and again in the interviews that we did for the Motherhood Movement film.